Hello, Froggy here, and it's last wish time, so naturally, we're gonna go from patrol. It's been a long time since my last wish from patrol video, and a lot has changed since then. We still start off the same way, but we no longer have the Salvation Script wall breach. But, on the other hand, we do have Dropbox. That means a lot of the areas that were previously inaccessible are now fairly easy to get to. It also effectively gives us a replacement for that door breach. Additionally, we've made some serious progress in going in the other direction, which some of you may remember is a key component of the runless Petras, but more on that in the second half. We're just going to go ahead and hit the load into the first area up here. There's some handy invisible ground you can step on. If you're not careful here, you might die to the load. In the past, this would have meant restarting, but these days we know a workaround. So, it turns out there's actually a hole to get out of here. Go ahead and show you that. It's right next to the center pillar there, in that dark hole. You can stasis climb up there, but I'm on Arc and in patrol, so I'm just going to use my Sparrow. You can see the ghost ping lines kind of curve around a bend up there, and that's about where we want to head. Code of the Missile can do pretty nice for a little bit of height gain, so that's what I'm going to use here. I'm mostly on Missile because that's going to come in handy on the return trip. And I'd rather have my supercharged. This area always looks neat. I can see why Kalli chooses to hang out here in between damage phases. And just making my way over to the bridge, which is around where the load zone is. And naturally all you need to do there is head back into the map like you normally do, and you should safely load. Not that it particularly matters here, because either way you want to be in map for the next part. And, apparently you can hit the load there. Not something that I was particularly aware of, but whatever, we can just die to every load. So there is a rather difficult Sparrow breach you can use to get through the next section, but luckily for us, we don't actually need to do that, because we have the Dropbox technique, which will let us simply break out of the box and then go back in later to hit the load. You'll need an ally to help you with this part. Henry is going to go ahead and place the Sparrow for me. And now we just need to drop a Sparrow off the edge. And that was too early. We're gonna have to do a little bit later than that. And there goes the Sparrow. Let's give this another go. And thanks to Henry for providing me with these upside down sparrows to transfer my prompt to. Let's give it another second this time. And there we go. Nice and easy. It is also rather pretty here, like it usually is out of box in the Dreaming City. Just going to head citywards and around to where Morgeth is. Just about there, and one of the things you'll notice is there is an awful lot of the Morgeth encounter here. Much more than you might expect there to be. In fact, the only thing that's missing here is the terrain. All of the curvy ground. And the door. Door's missing too, but you know, it'll be there when we're in the load. But luckily there's an easy Sparrow Breach for that part. Anyways, let's go hit that load. So naturally we need to cross back across this chasm, and luckily for us the rocks at the top are not actually in the box, so we can stand there safely and have a spawn point in case things go south. They probably will your first couple tries. We can also drop down onto the lower rocks without getting pulled into the box. At least one level lower. That gets us closer to the walkway we need to hit. And now we can just drop down in there. You're probably not going to make this in one go, so you want to touch the ground as much as possible to set your res point somewhere along there. And with luck, you'll spawn midway and be able to make progress. And it isn't too hard to run into the load there. And look at that! We didn't even die. If you were to do the Sparrow Breach, you would then need to do a Res Breach, which would cause you to die to the load. Which would kind of like this. I'll go ahead and link a video Gerb Snail made on this route, where I believe he hits that Sparrow Breach. It is one of the more difficult ones I've seen. I've still not managed to hit it successfully, so good luck with that. So somewhere below us here is the Ascendant Morgeth area. And since we've got Dropbox, we might as well go ahead and take a look at it. Just gonna set my Sparrow up here, and I could leave and rejoin to make it permanent. Or I could have Henry place one. Go ahead and give this a little drop here. And wait a little bit. And here we go. I'm out of box here still. I could actually enter that area if I wanted. You'll notice that the bridge is missing. After a little bit of searching around, I actually found that the bridge is over here for some reason. Or at least there are some bridge parts. Not really sure why they're out here, but kind of neat. You saw my original Dropbox video. I actually have some clips from Out of Box and Last Wish there, and around here was one of them. My eyes are just spinning out here for reasons unknown. Well, I guess we might as well get back to the rest of it. It is a pretty easy Sparrow flight to get over to the top of the Morgeth area. And there is a very easy Sparrow Breach, like I mentioned before. There's actually a way to skip this door without needing to use Sparrows at all, which means you can do it inside of the raid, but That is a bit more complicated. I'll go ahead and link Mad's video where, yeah, managed to do it. This Sparrow Breach is fairly easy. If you're having difficulties, you can lower to 30 FPS. And that should make it a bit better. But you don't really need to for this one, it's just one of those little things to make it more straightforward. Of course Henry gets it like first try. He's gonna steal that spot. Sparrow breaching is a whole lot of throwing your sparrow against the wall and seeing when you don't stick to it, I guess. Now that we're through, we can just go on to the back of the load and hit the next area. Go upwards a bit. And here we go. Just around the bend. Another load that I lived through. So now that we're in Hall of Two Souls, getting to the Riven area is rather straightforward. We're just going to go ahead and use the hole in the chest room, conveniently located in both of the versions of this room, in Hall of Two Souls and in Queen's Walk. We can't just climb directly up because of the vault hatch. You can see up there. But luckily it is pretty easy to get up there into that hole, especially with stasis. But we also have sparrows. I'm just gonna jump on this and get Goomba'd by Henry, I suppose. That's fine, no big deal. Let me just sparrow my way up. Nice and easy. And now that we have Missile, we can get up the rest of the way. Still remember the tedious Code of the Missiling up here that I did way back in the day. Waiting 4 minutes to go up each level is no fun. But now that we have stasis climbing, we won't have to do that again. And well, from patrol, naturally, there's just sparrows. Interesting fog sort of stuff. I don't know if you can see any of that from inside of the map, at least not off the top of my head. It's weird that there's so much out here. Anyways, it's pretty easy to hit the load outside of the map in this direction anyways. From the left side over here. Be very nice if we could do the other way, but I have not yet found a way to do that. Well, that's unfortunate. Dying to that load means we have to do that entire climb over again. Although we'll be doing the Queen's Walk side of it. But luckily we have sparrows to speed up the process.
Guardian, down.
Now that we're in the Queen's Walk version, there is no hatch to worry about, so we can just drop on down. And we'll go ahead and use the same hole to get back up. And use some height-preserving sword flying to not have to deal with any of the sparrow business. And now we'll just go up. The nice part about having to do this twice is you do get a pretty good view, at least. You can see out of map of the entire Riven encounter area. From certain distances, your view is rather obscured. And up above you can see the heart room. It's a bit harder to see the lower part, where you run through the Riven Ascendant area. Last time I was making a video of this, I mentioned how it would be nice to find a way into that Ascendant area, but now that we have Dropbox, you can actually do that. It's probably one of the more difficult Dropboxes because the area is surrounded by kill barriers. So the only way to get in is to do a precision Dropbox. Oh, well, I guess there's a death barrier there. But yeah, anyways, you have to do a very precise Dropbox, and then you'll have to immediately kill your momentum. Otherwise, you'll either fall to your death or crash your sparrow into the ground and explode. And neither of those is particularly good for your health. You'll want to find some land that is right above the area, and you can do that by just dropping down test sparrows and teleporting to them and seeing where you end up. There are a few areas that you can find that work quite nicely. On finding that kill zone. But yeah, you want to head towards the lower areas, which is about where you'll find some nice ground for dropping from. I find that these areas work fairly nicely. You've got a nice flat surface. You just gotta wait for Henry to get here. And let's see where this is. Let me go ahead and... So that needs a little... Oh, nope, that's gone. That was a big poke. Alrighty. The view you get from down here is also rather nice. And we're a little bit too far to the side, so we'll have to go a little bit closer to the wall. I'm just gonna get another peek. Your spear doesn't quite fall off. Sometimes you can kind of coax it off by jumping on the edge. Although, worst comes to worst, just lower your light and you can punch it off without causing damage. And there we go. All that effort just to immediately die. Anyways, closer to the wall should work nicely. Go ahead and let that drop. We'll probably take many attempts to get this right, because the timing is fairly tight. And there we go! You want to use a super or something to stop your momentum as immediately as you can, because it is a very tight window. With one person down, it doesn't matter as much if the other person survives, because if they smash into the ground, you can just get their res. But it is pretty nice to be here on patrol. Of course, you don't get the lighting effects. Anyways, let's go head to the top. If instead of dropping down all the way, you fly up instead, you can get a rather nice view of the dome here. Unfortunately, it doesn't really help you get inside of it. You'll find that the top is rather solid. Instead, we're going to have to res breach inside. If you head up this building, the lighting effects will change. You can spot some landmarks easily. We're going to be heading for this spot here to do our res breach. This is a spot that Gerbsnail used in his Last Wish video. There are many spots that work, but this one seems reasonably convenient. I'm just going to want to put the missile onto the right side near the top here, and then you can just walk off the side. You don't want to be uncrouched for any of this, so that's one of the reasons that this spot is so convenient. Now we just need to go a little bit away and die. I'm currently doing this solo. If I had an ally, I could just die in place and get rezzed. I'm also opting to jump off the edge entirely instead of dying on the ground. That has the benefit of having my ghost show up where I'm going to res. A little preview of if my spot looks good. And it does. I've also got my frame rate set low, so hopefully this works. And there we go. It's kind of nice to have a look around here without the hectic fight against the Taken going on. It is a fairly pretty area. You don't really get a nice opportunity to just enjoy the crystals. Anyways, we've seen just about all we need to here, so let's get headed backwards. A lot of this route comes from new bits that Henry managed to figure out. we were looking into the possibility of bringing back the runless Petras. Unfortunately, the pre-dunk has been patched, so it definitely won't be as simple as it was before. We tried to investigate doing a Petra's Walk, where you just have to do the Queen's Walk encounter flawless, but unfortunately the layout of doors has changed since the raid launch, and it's no longer possible to load Hall of Two Souls at all from the Queen's Walk encounter. You can from Riven, so there is still hope for a Riven-only Petra's run. So from up here, the load zone to Hall of Two Souls is just to the left, and because we're behind it, we avoid the preload. That means that we'll have a little bit of time before the doors spawn in. So I'm going to go ahead, hit this, jump up, melee and super to get a little bit of extra speed there, and I can make it through the doorway. I'm currently on a very fast internet connection, so none of that came into play. Unfortunately, in the Riven encounter, you'd have to go this way if you're on a Titan. You can see that the speed of always on time is just about enough. On a Warlock, you're able to blink through, and if you can move fast enough, you can do something very similar to the Titan route I just did. But I'm not really well versed in speedy techniques, so I will leave that as an exercise to you guys. But that would also work for getting the Morgeth egg solo. So this skip that I'm heading towards is another one that Henry found quite a while ago when we were first investigating the runless Petras. He was looking for a route that we'd be able to use when the Salvation script breach was inevitably patched. And luckily that paid off here. I'm just going to head over to that building, which is a classic Titan slithering spot. And just have to jump up there, and as you can see, Henry glides right over. Just gonna have to wait for my super, and then I'll be able to follow. And luckily that won't take long with the magic of editing. Going to gracefully glide over here. And now we just need to load the previous zone in, not die. And my track record today has not been great, so hopefully this goes well. And there we go, back in Keep of Voices. Unfortunately, our default would be on the other side of the door, so we're going to have to do another breach. So, Sparrow breaches will generally move you down. Res breaches will generally move you up. And that's rather convenient, because we need to move up here, and within the raid you won't have access to Sparrows. Just need to find the area of thin ground around where we did the Sparrow breach. Should be right over here. As with all res breaches, you're going to want to try to touch as little ground as possible outside of where you want to do the breach. Henry got pretty lucky with the initial one here. Let's see if I can do the same. Nope, at a res point a little too close. When that happens, you'll want to go some distance away to reset it. I switched over to stasis because stasis melee recharges a lot faster than your super. I'm just gonna melee in here and hopefully that will do it. The brief touching of the ground doesn't really matter. And there we go, we're through. Very good. This next part is pretty straightforward. No different than the previous times I've done it. So I'll go ahead and speed through that. I am resisting the urges to simply use my sparrow because this is a proof of concept to show that it can be done within the raid. We just need to climb up this side and head over to the top here. If you really want to, you can grab that chest. My vault's so full that loot has become something of a curse. And now we cross the crystal ceiling. Just don't stare too much at the shifting patterns and you'll be fine. This load can be a little bit tricky, and if you die, you'll have to redo the previous section since, once again, the default is on the wrong side. If you have two people, you can get a little bit of insurance using the handy-dandy IRB technique. We're each going to set our death points nearby, and that way only one of us needs to survive this load. Well that's worked out nicely.
Guardian down.
But Henry didn't make it. Luckily, since we set up an IRB, he doesn't have to do it again. And now back to Kalli. The Kalli door was one of the ones that I wasn't too hopeful that we'd be able to find a breach through. But once again, Henry pulled off some nifty tricks. So, unfortunately we don't know how to do this on a Titan, so we're gonna have to call in the Warlocks. My frog ship. I haven't changed that one since I got it. Put on my fancy outfit. And you're definitely going to want to make sure you have the Blink exotic on, because Blink will be quite key here. We're just going to head on up, and maybe I shouldn't have Blink on just yet. That's more like it. It's a little known fact that I'm actually a Warlock main when I play the game normally, whenever that happens. I just spend most of my time on Titan. It's useful to have a sword here because it helps out with the jumping a little bit, and you can swing to catch onto ledges. And here's where we'll be blinking through some death barriers. This one will probably take a few attempts to get right. You're going to want to jump from the lower point and then blink a little bit after the turn back pops up. You might want to just jump into it a few times to get a feel for where it is. But eventually, you should make it through. It gets easier with time. You can see that Henry just makes it first try. He's been doing this a bit more than I have. And let's get back on a more reasonable class for moving around. Good old Top Tree Dawnblade. Once again, we're going to be hitting the load from the backside. And this will give us enough time to run through the door before it spawns. Of course, since we're not in the raid, the starting door is not open. In the raid, we should just be able to go through that. But since we're not, we're going to need to find a alternative route. Since that basically completes the proof of concept, I am allowing myself sparrows from here on out. They'll come in handy if I can escape this a bit. The goal here is to hit the load outside of the map. From there, we'll be able to use the same hole that we used at the beginning of the video to get back inside. There's a nice little platform to the bottom here that I can use instead of doing the fancy sparrow flying that Henry did to get up there. A little bit of heat rises and it should be pretty easy to get into that gap. From here you can just jump and hit the load. And now we just need to climb up the side. The hole can be a little bit difficult to spot. At least when you're inside of the map, you have a very limited search space in that hole. But finding it among all of these rocks is another matter. Luckily, Henry knows just about where it is. So I'm just going to let him guide us to it. Once you get to this structure here, you'll find it a little bit below to the left. A well-placed dash will get you in, but failing that, you can use heat rises on this slope. On the left side, you can kind of crouch and get through. And now we've pretty much made it full circle. Of course, in the raid we could have already been at the wish wall, but here we are in this room nonetheless. But I think we might be able to do one better. Going back to the blink spot here, instead of going back into the wish wall room, we might be able to go back to the very beginning. Doesn't have too much practical value these days, especially with the strange load zone changes that prevent us from reaching patrol areas. But if we get those loads back at some point, I'll be able to use this to do something that will amuse me greatly. Just going to head back to where we load the next zone out of map. And if you've done any messing around, you may have noticed that it is quite difficult to go from Tower of Opened Eyes back to Devalian Mists. At least behind the door that opens up. And even if you hit the load from behind, the load zone is right inside of the door. Luckily, we have a better understanding of preload areas and how to avoid them being in place. So as long as no one is in the Tower of Opened Eyes, we should be good. Plus, since we're hitting the load from the backside, we'll be able to skip the preloading region. Once again, we're going to use our insurance policy in case only one of us manages to get through. Of course, since this is patrol, we could very well just fast travel, but where's the fun in that? Alright, fingers crossed. Ooh, it is not liking that. Those teleports are the game preventing me from dying. Oh. There we go. Plenty of time. Still hasn't even loaded in. Oh, nope, there it goes. Let's see if Henry manages it. Ah, there we go. Managed to beat his shaders in. Well, I'd say that just about wraps it up. Hopefully we'll get some new Petra's Run cheeses out of this. And thanks a lot to Henry for all of his work on these new routes. Couple of little bonus clips here. This is outside of the box in the first spire, flying around where Gardens of Vasilla / the Strand would be. And here's Ria Silvia. Thought it was kind of neat to be able to see these areas up close, so I figure I would share the clips. Normally you would just get a little glimpse of them as you run across the bridge.